Now, the DA in Gauteng has accused Premier Panyaza Lesufi of enabling a corruption cover-up. The party claims the Premier is withholding over 50 forensic reports in a bid to hide corruption. The party is also raising questions around whether or not an investigation has been instituted regarding the allegations of corruption at the Gauteng Department of Education. Let's now discuss this with local government specialist Dr. Tim Maake, who's joining us live now. Dr. Maake, good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for your time. In your view, what's going on here?
Good afternoon to you and the viewers. I think, in my view, we need to brace ourselves for a continued antagonistic relationship between the Democratic Alliance and the African National Congress in the Gauteng province. Let's remind the viewers that what we are observing today as the press briefing of the DA regarding the release of the forensic investigation reports, it's a continuation of the deadlock that took place between the DA and the ANC in the establishment of a government of provincial unity. We know what happened. Thereafter, we know what happened in the city of Joburg, wherein the African National Congress, together with other small parties, were able to, constitute a coalition government exclusive of the Democratic Alliance. And just recently, the Action SA, the ANC, and other parties were able to unseat the Democratic Alliance within the city of Tshwane. Now, all of those things talks to the fact that in the province of Gauteng, as opposed to the national political space, the relationship between the Democratic Alliance and the African National Congress is non-existent. And that is the reason why we would see the DA going to the public, raising several issues which will look very legitimate, they will look very sound, but in the main, there are underlying factors, and the underlying factors is the disagreements which they had post the national and provincial government elections. That's exactly what we're seeing.
It sounds like while you say there are questions that must be asked about the allegations they're making, there also might be politics at play, if I'm getting you correctly. Is that what you're saying?
That's true, precisely because you would note the fact that if there are any reports that are withheld by any person, there's a legal recourse that the DA could have activated. And the first one is just to formally request the access to the reports that the Premier might be holding at his disposal. And that's where they can use the Promotion of Access to Information Act to compel the Premier to share with them whatever reports. But equally important, the Democratic Alliance is part of the government in the Gauteng province, even though they are not part of the coalition arrangements, but they sit within the legislature. And that's another platform where they could be able to request the legislature to call the Premier to account on the reasons why he's not able to release those reports.
But they pardon me, Dr. Maake, they do say, though, that the Speaker in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature did not deem their questions urgent.
That's the point that I was going to go to say, failure for the legislature to give them a hearing. They also have got a legal recourse to approach the court, for the court to force the Premier to release the reports so that the public can get to know what is actually happening. This is precisely because calling for a media briefing will still not give the intended results, which is having access to the reports. If the fundamental issue here is to say, let's be transparent, obviously the courts are available to give anyone a legal recourse where they believe that somebody is withholding information without a good cause. So hence the issue of the continued relationships between the ANC in the Gauteng province and the DA would continue to be at play, and that is something that we need to be observing from time to time. That does not mean the point of wanting the reports to be release is not legitimate. The point is legitimate, but the question is the timing and the platform wherein these reports need to be processed. That's an issue that needs to be watched with a cautious eye.
So they're saying that they will be referring these allegations to the Public Service Commission. Is that the right platform in your view?
Well, referring the allegations to the Public Service Commission, one needs to appreciate the fact that the mandate and the role of the Public Service Commission is quite very clear. The Public Service Commission is there to deal with the conduct of public servants. And in this case, the issue is about a public representative who does not want to release a document which is of public interest. And the appropriate platforms, as I've already mentioned, could have been the legislature. If the legislature fails, then the courts will be there to make sure that those who are in the executives are held accountable by the legislature. And if the legislature is failing to hold the executive to account, then the courts will compel the legislature to perform its oversight responsibilities. But taking the matter to the Public Service Commission, it would have worked if they are going there to say, Director General so-and-so is not cooperating with us, and would want to, as the Public Service Commission, to look at his conduct against the provisions of Section 195, which requires the public service to be professional, the public service to be transparent, and to be able to make sure that information that is required by the public is made available. So that would have been an appropriate and relevant platform. But at this level, surely, I think a different approach could have been the one that would have been considered if the interest is to make sure that the reports are made public.
It's going to be an interesting one because they're also claiming that there are certain officials that they accuse of soliciting bribes and all of that. But now we've just seen in a statement that the Gauteng Premier tomorrow will be briefing the media and he will, of course, talk about the recent allegations as well that have been leveled against him. What are you expecting?
Well, it's not surprising. One was definitely awaiting a moment wherein the Premier is also going to go public and convene a press briefing for him to be able to respond to the allegations that the leader of the Democratic Alliance has labeled against him. And this is a trend that we have been observing over a period of time, that once the DA goes to brief the media, we know for a fact that the Premier or the chairperson of the ANC in the Gauteng province would also go public and make sure that he tries to respond and clarify the issues that will be at hand. It is for that reason that we say going to call a press briefing to deal with something of critical importance, such as the release of documents, may not be the correct platform to ventilate. Otherwise, the appropriate platform would have been to approach the court. Let's be mindful of the fact that if there are allegations of individuals that might be involved in wrongdoing, obviously the pieces of legislations in the country calls upon those of us who might have access to such information to report those to the police. Otherwise, we will be considered as also as enabling those corrupt activities to continue unabated. So it's a matter of having to be careful when we deal with matters of law, making sure that we refer them to the appropriate structures, for the appropriate structures to deal with them accordingly. So as a result, we will not be surprised to see a continuation of press briefings that will be taking place one after the other.
All right, let me thank you so much for your time this afternoon. That was local government specialist, Dr. Tim Maake.